I was finally working full-time as a therapist. And mind you, this was a very long and intentional path to becoming a therapist. So it wasn't something that I just happened upon. I really wanted to do this work. And so I thought once I was finally doing the work, I'd feel a bit more connected to it. But what I was finding was a sense of disconnect. And it wasn't like I felt like this was the wrong path. It wasn't regret. It wasn't questioning whether I was doing the right thing. It was more so, I think looking back, it was burnout. I think that there was a disconnect with what my mind was rationally knowing and what my body was feeling. So while I felt that it was the right path for me and I knew that it was, I didn't somatically feel that. I wasn't embodying that essence. And I think interestingly, what was also happening was that was kind of being mirrored and reflected back to me. I think similarly to what I had mentioned earlier, a lot of the people that I was working with also were experiencing a sense of burnout, feeling disconnected from their bodies. But also, what was really interesting to me was every time that I work with a new client, I always ask how their therapy experience was before in the past, if they've done therapy before. I always ask, what were some of the things that you liked, that you didn't like, that resonated, that didn't? And what I was hearing across the board for those who had done therapy before in the past was, I feel like I've exacerbated myself of speaking about my problem. I've gone in circles just talking about my problem. And while I rationally kind of understand things and know that there's better for me, I don't feel differently. And so I was like, okay, here we're all me, and what is being presented to me as well in the clinical space is there's this disconnect between what we know and what we feel. And again, it was like that light bulb of like, okay, here we are trying to resolve the problem with our thoughts, which is a vital process. The rational mind plays a very important role, but it's limited in nature. And so here I was, doing my research as I do, just kind of diving into it and being like, okay, what else is out there? What is the missing element? And that's when I really started to take a deep dive into exploring this other world of somatics. And I found a program called the School of Embodied Arts, which is an amazing program. That's what I ended up doing. And I think also, too, is in signing up for these programs, kind of what I said earlier, and how a lot of what I do is first and foremost for myself. What I love about training programs is it really forces you to drop in and be devoted to the practice. When you're getting trained and certified, you have to be a participant in that practice very deliberately. And so after a year of really dropping into this, I saw how profound it was in my life. It shifted how I look at life completely and the way that our body plays a role in this process. And then once I felt comfortable to start bringing that into the therapeutic space, it was really, really fascinating because at this point, I had been working with some clients maybe for a year already. And prior to that, it was kind of traditional talk psychotherapy. And I would, tell them, I've been incorporating this new modality. Would you be interested? I think it could be an interesting tactic to explore. And it was wild. What I would see was some people who had kind of just been talking about this problem. I'd lead them into this session because it's a very kind of intuitive, emotional session. So a lot of the somatic sessions that I do, there's different practices that I do, but it is kind of this guided meditation where you have your eyes shut, you're kind of moving a bit, you're tapping into the body, and we'll work with an intention. So if it's in regard to maybe shame or an experience that you've had before in the past, I'll kind of loosely start dropping that in and kind of taking you layer by layer to feel it a bit more deeply. So it's not a rational process at all. And what I would see was these clients have these like massive cathartic releases that I never saw the entire year that I worked with them. Because the rational mind, while it is powerful, it can play tricks on us and it can keep us in this distance between us and that problem. It can intellectualize the problem. It can talk about the problem, but like not really drop in to the root textures of that issue or that experience that we've had, which I think we have to allow ourselves to feel the emotional impact of those things in order to release and let go. We have to train the body that it is safe to feel. It's safe to be in our body. It's safe to flow through these emotions. We want to live in a state of flow, allow ourselves to feel the pain, the grief, the sadness, and also that then allows for us to experience joy and ecstasy more vibrantly as well. So,
Sure.
yeah. I mean, all of these things kind of converging and like
Yeah.
just seeing it firsthand in that space, I was like, wow, how it impacted me. I definitely saw it impact others in a similar way.
That's beautiful because I'm so glad people were receptive to it too.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like probably they were feeling like, it's this, the things I've been doing hasn't worked. Why not? Like maybe even
Mm-hmm.
did you feel like some of them, they might have been a little hesitant,
Oh,
but they
yeah.
were like, you know what? F it. Like let's try it
Absolutely.
out. Because it's one of those things that even for my own journey personally, and I've told you about this as well, is I remember I got to a point where, because I had been going to traditional psychotherapy for probably about 5 to 6 years, bouncing to different people,
Mm-hmm.
because part of my issue, I feel like, and maybe other people have this in therapy as well, was I was almost making the therapist like, oh, because I haven't had any changes, they're a bad therapist, which
Mm-hmm.
isn't
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
always the case. You have to really take responsibility. And I felt like traditional talk therapy helped me to communicate my issues to my inner circle, to my
Mm-hmm.
close loved
Mm-hmm.
ones.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, this is what I'm going through. If, just have some grace and patience with me. I'm really working through it. I understand how this is probably affecting your life because you're a
Mm-hmm.
close loved one of mine. And I felt like that was really helpful, but kind of
Mm-hmm.
like feeling the difference, like you said, the change. And that's also kind of how I went through my journey, is looking into hypnotherapy, different
Mm-hmm.
somatic practices, and just seeing how the subconscious and how we hold things in our body.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've heard of Dr. Gabor Mate. I love his work. I'm going to be seeing him. He's having an event in the city. When I read his work even more so, I saw how, like, oh my goodness, yeah, we really need to work through these traumas, like on a physical, like the whole
Absolutely.
spectrum,
Yeah.
and started trying to incorporate different practices, even how my health issues, like my
Oh,
physical health issues, started
absolutely.
going away. Me thinking like, oh
Absolutely.
no, I just need to cut back on some sodium or
Mm-hmm.
things like that. But when I actually worked through certain traumas, or some people don't like to call, when I worked with men in particular,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of men, they think that unless they're a veteran that, went to the
Yeah.
Vietnam War or
Uh-huh.
something, that they haven't experienced real trauma. So to resonate with them, I'm like, okay, let's call it a complex.
Yeah.
You've got a couple complexes that we got to
We
work
all have our
through,
traumas, but we can call it different
like we'll
things.
call it something different just to make you feel more comfortable. But that's one thing that I was like, wow, we hold so much in our body,
I
literally
mean,
losing weight without trying.
no,
Oh,
it's
well, with
wild.
trying, but but
Yeah.
doing different things. So back in more evolutionary, thousands of years ago
Mm-hmm.
times, if we buried our feelings, we didn't survive.
Mm-hmm.
Our feelings, our intuition was literally what let us know, oh, something's not right. Oh, there's an oncoming threat
Yeah.
that's going to eat me or something.